And welcome back to Inside the Tape on Inside the Birds Network. You have myself, Clay Harbor, former Philadelphia Eagles tight end, and the man, the myth, the legend, Greg Cosell. The man watches more tape than anybody, I think, than NFL quarterbacks and head coaches do. And we don't need any further introduction. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the Miami game, talk about what we saw on tape, and then we're going to move in to next week, as we always do, talking about the opponent, the matchups, what we saw in film, what the Eagles need to do to get to 7-1. Well, before we get there, before we skip ahead to that, we got to talk about this huge win the Birds had on Sunday night here, Greg. And, looking at the film, we've had a few days to digest it, to really go over, to really see what happened. What stood out to you in the Eagles' victory over the Dolphins?
In some ways, I wasn't surprised by anything. The Eagles did exactly what you have to do when you play Miami, which is play high percentage split safety, which they had to do, first of all, because they were playing with Sidney Brown and Terrell Edmonds, who's no longer an Eagle, obviously. They played a ton of split safety. The one thing that did strike me as really interesting about what they did was they chose to play with their five-man front. But I'm sure that was a function of the fact that they were going to play, essentially split safety. They played a high percentage of cover two, which is not something they normally do. But that's they chose not to treat the Dolphins' base personnel as 11 personnel, meaning three wide, which a lot of teams do. And they played with their base 5-2 front with split safeties behind. And that's exactly what you have to do to play against the Dolphins. So in a sense, I wasn't really surprised by anything that they did. What I was really surprised about, Clay, was this was not the Dolphins offense I had seen through 6 games at all. There was not one snap in which Tyreek Hill motioned across the formation. I was incredibly surprised by that because that had been a staple of everything they had done. Their run game to start was nothing like it had been through the first 6 weeks. And when they ran like they had the first 6 weeks in the third quarter, they gained a ton of yards. So I can't speak to what was in Mike McDaniel's head, but the Dolphins played offense totally differently in this game than they played through their first 6 games, and in a sense played right into the Eagles' hands.
Yeah, I was shocked by that, and I'll pay the piper right now. This, for the first time this year, I went against the Eagles and said that I think they're a great team, but I think that the Dolphins might get the better of them because of this receiving core and how powerful, high power this offense was. And we didn't see the Dolphins do a lot of things that they're accustomed to doing. And I think maybe the Eagles' defensive line had something to do with that. But overall, I was expecting, like you said, more motions, more switch releases, trying to confuse this secondary with some guys that haven't really been there that long, besides obviously Slay and Bradbury. But like you said, they played cover 2 34%, which is something that they typically don't do.
No.
A lot of quarters too, 24% quarters, a little bit of cover 3 in there, and then only 5-6% of cover 1 man-to-man, which is something that you'll usually see a little bit more of from the Eagles. So that was surprising, but that's them playing into their opponent. You can't play man-to-man when you got a guy as fast as Tyreek Hill.
And the other thing is even though they played their 5-man front, they really didn't rush 5 very often at all. They almost exclusively rushed 4 and played that split safety zone coverage behind it. So because coverage is really the key thing, pressure was not really a big factor in this game for the most part. It usually isn't against the Dolphins. Obviously, they had 4 sacks, 2 came in the fourth quarter. But it wasn't really a pressure game in a strict sense. It was, that's just not the way you play against the Dolphins. You take away the throws. But yeah, I was really surprised at Miami. It just didn't look like their offense at all. But the Eagles, played exactly the right way. That's the way you have to play. Split safety, rush 4, and it starts with coverage, and that's what they did. And it was really, really effective. And I don't know if Mike McDaniel felt with all the split safety and that maybe he felt that the motion would not be a factor because, as you know, when you balance your defense with split safety, unlike single high safety, you don't have to change strength. You don't have to react to motion across the formation because you're balanced, with two split safeties. So I don't know, maybe Mike McDaniel felt that, hey, that's not going to be a big factor for us in this given game. But I've seen him do that against other teams that play split safety, and he didn't do it in this game. But, because the bottom line is if Tua can't make his first window throw, he becomes an uncomfortable player.
Yeah, and I mean, there were some, unfortunate penalties, obviously, for the Dolphins, obviously on the Tyreek touchdown early, a couple other penalties there that did give the Eagles life and kind of save them a little bit. I know Slay was happy that Tyreek didn't pull that touchdown there. But so tell me what you saw on the defensive line. Were you as impressed, with Miami Dolphins offensive line that really number one in the top 5 in the league in sacks given up? Obviously, 2 is a big part of that. But were you surprised with, I know you said pressure didn't play a big part, but still Sweat, Hassan Reddick, and Jalen Carter in his own right had a pretty solid day. So what did you see up front that was able to help the Eagles really shut down this offense? Held them to negative 7 yards in the first half rushing.
Yeah, I mean, as I was watching that tape, I didn't feel like pressure was a huge factor. I mean, there were a couple of individual rushes here and there, but it wasn't a pressure game in a strict sense. It became such. I think they had a sack in the first quarter. I'm trying to remember on a 3rd and long. Obviously, 3rd and long is a whole different scenario than normal down and distance. And then they ended up with the 2 sacks in the fourth quarter when the game became totally different, when the game played out in such a way that it was not a normal game for the Dolphins. But this was not a pressure game in a strict sense where you felt like, man, they just have bodies around Tua all day long and he has no time to throw, because that's not really the way Miami plays on offense. The runs in which Reddick made those plays, I'm being honest, I didn't understand those runs. But again, I'm sure if Mike McDaniels was talking to me in my ear right now, he'd tell me exactly what he thought. But that's not the way they had run the ball this year. So I didn't really understand that. And it just made it, they asked someone to block Reddick in a way that to me was not really feasible. And, you still have to make the play,
spending the tight end across the formation to kick him out. And then you got
someone from the outside. I didn't quite understand
coming from the outside, cracking down on Hassan Reddick, and he didn't give him time. So I think maybe there was a missed call or signal for a motion there. But regardless, you have a tight end and a wide receiver blocking Hassan Reddick. That's probably not going to be great. But let's look at the Eagles' offense here. How are they able to move the ball against Miami? What'd you see on tape?
I kind of love the Eagles' offense. I was trying to think about the best way to describe the Eagles offense. And in some ways, how I would describe it, Clay? They've become boringly really good. At its core, the Eagles offense is built on their O-line and their run game with the ability to make explosive plays in the pass game through design and scheme and individual playmakers at running back, wide receiver, and tight end, in addition to the fact that Hurts has higher level second reaction traits. So they're a sustaining offense structurally, but they have big play abilities throughout. And they're kind of like I said, they've become boringly really, really good. They just kind of do the same thing every single week.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it's funny, obviously, I was happy to see Goddard get involved early, and some of them look like some coverage bust, but he found some open holes in some zones, got some good plays early on. We got him back in the end zone. And then obviously AJ Brown, being AJ Brown, I mean, this guy's got to be talked about as one of the best receivers in the league. I mean, obviously he outplayed Tyreek Hill, who is known as the best receiver in the league. And there's been a lot of people talking about Jalen Hurts, Greg, and I wanted to get your take on this. Some people are saying he's regressing. He's turning the ball over too much, 2 more turnovers. He had the fumble and the interception. What's your thoughts on watching Jalen Hurts on tape? Obviously, you watched him last year. You're watching this year. Is he doing something different to you? Is he regressing in a way, or is it just you look at Josh Allen's thrown over 6 picks. Patrick Mahomes thrown 6 picks. Tua's thrown 6 picks. All these guys have done the same thing, but the only guy you hear people talking about regressing for some reason is Jalen Hurts. So give me your thoughts.
I would say overall that he hasn't played snap after snap as well as he did a year ago. There are some plays you can pick out that are poor plays by Hurts, where you say, "Oh, that's not really good." But I think for the most part, he's played pretty well. You got to remember one thing: he's in an offense, and again, people always take what I'm about to say as a knock on the quarterback, but it's not a knock on the quarterback. I mean, it's every team wants a really good O-line and really good playmakers. If you asked any offensive coach, Clay, you played in the league, that's what they tell you. That's what they want. They want a complete offense. The Eagles have a complete offense. They've got a high-level offensive line, arguably the best in the league. They've got a really good running back situation. They've got a really good receiving core. They've got 3 higher level receivers. Brown, who right now is playing as a top 3 guy in the league. Smith is still very, very good. Goddard is without question a top 5 tight end in the league. So they have really, really good players, and it all starts with the O-line. So, Hurts can have some plays where they're not quote unquote perfect, and they still have a really efficient offense. Think about what happened in this game. The Dolphins tie it up 17-17 on the interception that Baker takes in. And what happens on the next 2 Eagle drives? Long, sustained, like I said, almost boringly good drives in which they scored touchdowns. And obviously, the second one had the long pass to Brown, which was a big-time throw by Hurts under pressure from Van Ginkel, who hit him just as he threw it. So that was a big, big-time throw. So, yeah, I think with any game, you can look at a play or 2 or 3 and pick out a play by a quarterback. I mean, the Hurts fumble, for instance, was on him totally. I don't know how he missed. I think it was DeAndre Swift on the angle route because that was the play design, and he was wide open, and he looked right at him. Only Jalen can tell you why he didn't throw it. I can't. But, so he'll have a few plays like that in every game. But for the most part, I think he's playing efficiently, and the second reaction ability is such a huge factor. I mean, he can make plays outside the structure of an offense, and that's such a critical piece.
I love that you said that, Greg, because I have a couple of plays that I want us to look at, and one of them is really focused on Jalen Hurts and how he can make plays outside of the structure of an offense. And I'm going to share my screen right here, and me and you are going to talk through this a little bit. But this is, I think a play.
Are we talking the 4th and 3, the 32-yarder to Brown down to the 1-yard line?
Exactly. So
see, this is a great thing, Clay, because it was 4th and 3, and he actually had Brown within the structure of the play. Brown's number 1 at the top of the screen.
Yeah, you see
this
that
ball
Brown
should have been
there?
thrown. He chose not to throw it. Again, only he can tell you why. And then it became a second reaction play, and he made a great, great play.
Okay, so you see him here. He's about to get sacked. And most quarterbacks, the play's over right here, Greg.
Right.
Play's over. But as a receiver, as a player, you got Jalen Hurts back there. I've played with Michael Vick. I've played with even Blake Bortles, a guy that can scramble a little bit. Jimmy Garoppolo could move a little bit. I've played with some guys that can move. You know that you got to keep your route going. And then you see, you don't think that A.J. Brown is going to get this open when you're looking at this scene right here. But you drop him in coverage.
And that's what happens. And like I said, this was in some ways classic Jalen, because if you stop it right here, he has the throw. If you look at the top of the screen, he's got Brown for the first down. It's 4th and 3.
Yep.
Technically, if you're actually evaluating this play, that ball should be thrown there to get a first down.
Absolutely.
As I said, only Jalen can tell you why he didn't throw it, but then he has this ability to make this into something more than that, and it became something far more than that.
In the film room, he's definitely going to get coached and say, hey, it's one of those things like
this was the play design, this was the play structure. Throw the ball.
Great call. Great, Brian Johnson. Nice. You get off coverage. Okay, you got Goddard going through the defender right here to make sure that A.J. Brown isn't running into a headache from this linebacker. Right. Jalen knows that. So if A.J. is going to beat this cornerback, he knows Dallas is going to push this defender. He's going with Dallas. So right now, you got to throw it to him. But Jalen Hurts is so good, even when he misses. Maybe he felt something up there. I thought it was pretty good protection.
So here's my question, Clay, having been a player. in the meeting room, do they say great play, Jalen, or do they say you should have thrown the ball to A.J. Brown for the first down at 4 yards?
Here's what they're going to do. They're going to tell him, hey, you got to throw that. You got to rip that. But then afterwards, they said, great reaction, great play. But, moving forward, you got to hit that ball. And obviously, we'll let it run right here.
Right. It becomes a great play.
Playmaker.
It's like in basketball when the guy takes the 3-point shot and the coach is like, no. Yes, when it goes in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought this was good protection. And, obviously here you see what the Dolphins are doing. It looks like a quarter half.
Has a quarter half look to it.
Quarter half, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you see the playmaker. And then we'll look at the protection just to put a bow on this play. But you see that Jalen did have some time right here to get to his read, right?
Again, we were just being honest. Hey, the film tells all. That ball should have been thrown. And that's why they ran Goddard inside on that route, because Goddard, in a sense, presents a natural pick, so he has a clean throw to Brown.
It looks like he's about to take it. He's about to take it. For some reason, he gets away from it. And it turned out to be
a super positive play.
Yep.
And, he has really good vision on the move. He sees things well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So and that turned out, obviously, they had the brotherly shove, I think, on the next play or the play after. But, it turned out to be a really big play. But, their offense is just, it's like I said, it's just boringly really good. They can do pretty much everything. It starts up front. Each week is a different run game. I love the touchdown to Goddard on the screen, which was a run screen RPO, and in which they got zero coverage. So as soon as Jalen saw zero, that accelerates the screen. He's not even worried about the handoff because he knows what he has to his left with the screen. So, they just do a lot of really, really good things.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And as a player, this victory for me is a broad, looking at it from if I'm a tight end with the Eagles, it's just a confidence building thing. If you're an offensive player, you just got so much confidence in your defense after watching them do that. It just helps you to play so much more free. If you punt the ball, it's okay. You guys can be more aggressive because, hey, our defense could stop the Dolphins. We're going to be fine. We got Jalen Hurts here. He wasn't 100%, but he was still able to go out there and fight and win the game and play effective enough. So this team's got to be very confident. Obviously, we can't overlook the Commanders coming in. But before we move on to the Commanders, I got one more play I want to share and talk about on the tape here, Greg.
Got it.
Yeah, so here, obviously it looks like it's a cover two. They're lining up. Well, I don't have the down and distance saved here, but you see a short motion like Greg mentioned earlier. It's a balanced formation. It's a balanced front. You don't see anybody moving with this motion.
2x2 set.
2x2 sets, balanced. Defenses love that. So then
cover two.
You see cover two, but luckily for the Eagles, they were able to get some pressure up front, and there wasn't a ton of that. But
I forget when this was in the game.
I think this was pretty early.
This was early. This was the early play where Carter had the great pass rush. I think on Isaiah Wynn, was it not, when Wynn went out of the game?
Yep, when Wynn got hurt for the game.
This was one of the few true plays where the pass rush was a big factor. And Carter's just so good inside. He's, and the interesting thing is early in the game, through much of the first half, they actually slid their line toward Cox. You can see right here, the center goes to Cox, which left Carter one-on-one with the left guard, Isaiah Wynn in this case, and he ended up not playing anymore after this. But you see the center, you see it, Clay, just for the audience. You see the center go to his right to slide toward Cox, and that leaves Carter one-on-one.
Yeah, that's why people always talk about, why does it matter so much? You talk about a player having someone else in the D-line. For situations like this, Fletcher Cox is drawing the double team. You get one-on-one with Jalen Carter against Isaiah Wynn, who's a veteran in this league. He shouldn't be able to manhandle Wynn like this. And
no, he does. This was one of the early pressure. You didn't see a lot of these quick pressures in the game, but this was one that really, really counted.
We wanted to give you guys an extra look because me and Greg sitting here talking about tape, we thought it would be better. What's better than talking about tape? Actually watching tape. And then we got, this is one of the receptions from Jalen Waddle.
See, now, I thought they also had some issues in this game. And this, even though this is complete, I thought they had some issues with their routes. They had too many guys too close together. Even on the Slay interception, which we're not looking at right now, I thought that Waddle ran the wrong route because I thought they were looking for the matchup of Mostert on Cunningham, which they got, and Mostert ran by Cunningham, and Waddle was 3 yards away from Mostert, which should never have happened. So, they had Miami had some issues in this game that we've not really seen them have through much of the season. So it was a combination of the Eagles playing exactly the right way on defense and the Dolphins just doing some things we've not really haven't seen them do up to this point in the season.
Absolutely. The landmarks, Greg. The offensive coordinators preach landmarks. When they go, why do players go and just throw routes on air? You know what you're focusing on? You're focusing on your landmarks on the field. It's huge with spacing.
Spacing. Glad you said that word. It's massive. Spacing.
Yes. Because you're bringing another defender to the party out here. And later, Tua pays for it when Slay gets that interception. And up front, you see, this left guard has eyes on Josh Sweat, and he leaves Jalen Carter. And Carter does get some pressure late. Obviously, the ball's gone there. So it didn't really affect.
Well, that's what happens. That's why when their pass game is working, the ball does get out pretty quick. Carter was not going to get there no matter how quickly he beats the guard.
Yeah, because Tua is quick. He knows where he wants to go. He takes it quick. 1, 2, out. Okay, and that's why Tua is having such a successful year. All right, and that is us putting a bow on the game against the Dolphins. Overall, like I said, I thought it was a great win for the Eagles. I thought Hurts played gritty, played tough. Obviously wasn't 100%. Did what he had to do. Defense showed up, really put this great offense, stuck them in some mud. And then the offense did what they needed to do. So overall, I was very happy with this game, and I know Greg was as well. Moving forward, Greg, I know this is the second time they're playing the Commanders. Okay?
Hey, it's Jeff Mosher. I love the fall because football's back, but it's also my busiest season. Between work, kids going back to school, youth sports and activities, there's just not enough time, especially to make a good home-cooked meal. That's why I love HelloFresh. They deliver farm-fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to my doorstep. No more wasting time at the grocery store because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. We don't waste time researching new recipes and planning meals. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. How efficient is that? Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. HelloFresh is 25% less expensive than takeout, so you'll get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. Don't forget about taste and selection. HelloFresh makes food for meat lovers, seafood lovers, vegetarians, and those who love variety. My personal favorites are the spicy Creole stew and pecan-crusted trout, 2 dinners my whole family enjoyed, and we actually had time to sit down together and eat at the table. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. Use that code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit.
And the first time, this game went to overtime. This game could have been a coin flip.
I know, yeah.
Teams have went opposite directions since that game. But give us your broad overview, what you've seen on tape since that first week.
Well, let's put it this way. That was the best, surprisingly, given the quality of the opponent with the Eagles and their D-line. That was the best game the Washington offensive line has played all season and the best game Howell's played all season. And it's pretty surprising given what we've seen since. You just go look at last week with the Giants and the Commanders. Howell was sacked 6 times, and he had no chance. They were not on him at all. And basic stuff, TT stunts, just basic stuff that, O-lines going into week 7 of an NFL season need to be able to respond to and handle. And Howell's been sacked 40 times. He's on a record pace. He's been sacked the most on 3rd down of any quarterback in the league. But yet, when they played the Eagles week 4, he was phenomenal on 3rd down. He was 8 for 10 for 108 yards. I think 5 of those 8 completions went for first downs. It was the best game of the year, like I said, that their O-line played and that Howell played. So who knows? But that's been few and far between this year for the Commanders.
No, you said it, man. This guy's on pace to break David Carr's record of getting sacked the most in NFL history. They were 1 for 15 on third down against the Giants. You saw how good they were, like you just said it, against the Eagles. So to me, I mean, this is a tale of two teams, and we all know you can throw out the record. These NFC East games, I've played in these games. These games are crazy, Greg. Sometimes there ain't no rhyme or reason in these games.
Right.
Looking at the film, to me, there is no way that this team should be able to play with the Eagles. And obviously, Terry McLaurin can play. Jahan Dotson can play. But Sam Howell, he got sacked 6 times. He's getting rid of the ball slow. He threw an interception, 0 touchdowns. To me, outside of those playmakers, Brian Robinson had eight carries for 23
they're not running
yards.
the ball. Yep.
I
would say this in an odd way, Clay. I was impressed with Sam Howell last week because he was sacked 5 times in the first half and 1 time on the first possession of the third quarter, and he hung in there. He did not get gun shy. He stayed in late in the down and made some throws. He's a tough kid. I mean, don't forget he's a first-year starting quarterback who was a 5th-round pick. So, you expect him to have ups and downs. The O-line has been really bumpy this year, with the exception of the Eagles game. So we'll see, but Howell, in many ways, he impressed me last week, despite the fact that he got sacked so many times. And like I said, they were not on him. Those were quick pressures.
Yeah, no. And speaking of Sam Howell getting sacked, Greg, since you said it, we will go ahead and take a peek. Since this is inside the tape, let's bring up some tape here. And here we go. We got Howell dropping back.
That's fast.
Yeah. Maybe there's an argument to say he could have got rid of this ball.
They're in what's kind of a loaded front, but
you said it. You said it. A TE stunt. A simple stunt.
This might be a TT. Can we see it from the end zone? Can you play it?
Yeah, let's play it from the end zone here. Let's just let it run, and we'll get it from the end zone. Okay.
So you probably got Lawrence and Williams here. Let's see if it's a TT stunt.
Yeah, it's a TT stunt. It's going to be.
Then you got the 0 technique and kind of the 4-eye. So I think it's a TT. Let's see.
And when we say TT, we're talking about the defensive tackle stunt here. So you see, okay, you saw it right there. They rush upfield, and then they do a stunt.
So who's the penetrator? It's tough to see where you stopped it. Who goes first?
Looks like 9. Oh,
I think Lawrence went first from 0 technique, and Williams looped around him. I think that's what happened.
Yep.
So so it's a TT stunt, and they had so many issues. There were 2 or 3 TT stunts in this game. Look at this. It's a TT stunt, Clay. It's week 7. This can't happen. This can't happen.
I'll tell you what, Greg. There is no worse position to be on a football field than where this man is standing.
Right.
Okay, I've been there. All you can say is, "Look out!"
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
This
you just got beat.
This is a problem. And when there's pressure right in your face like that, it's always easy to say, "Oh, he could have thrown it," but that's right in your face, and it's fast.
Yep, and that was on a 3rd down and forced the Commanders to punt right there. So that's just showing you what Howell's dealing with. To me, there was nothing he could have done right there. A simple TT stunt. There's some TE stunt, which is tackling ends, that you'll see from this team. So I think the Eagles, they don't do a lot of that because their players are so good at just rushing upfield, and they don't need it.
Well, it's funny you say that. They've done more this year under Desai than they did under Jonathan Gannon. He's more a believer in the stunt game. And just so people understand what we're talking about, TT means 2 tackles. TE means the tackle goes first as the penetrator and the end loops around him. If we call it an ET stunt, the end goes first as the penetrator and the tackle would loop around him. So the first letter is the position that goes first as the penetrator.
Yeah. And we can't forget, though. This game, the Commanders have a decent defensive line here. I mean, they have a pretty solid defensive line. Say what you will. I mean, their defense has given up 27 points per game. They're 15th on third down. And, last week, their defense only gave up seven. I think they gave up 14. I think
they did.
But their offense only scored 7 points.
A couple of points, Clay, that are really important here. Number one, that D-line has not played at a high level despite the so-called quality of individual talent. This is a defense that needs the D-line to be the foundation, and they've not played that way. Number two, this will be a totally different defense than the Eagles saw week 4 due to injury. Week 4, this was a team whose foundational defense, their base defense, was what we call big nickel. They played with 3 safeties as their foundational base defense. Derek Forrest, one of the safeties, is on IR. So now their base defense is a more traditional 4-3. And as you recall in that game, Emmanuel Forbes was their nickel corner who played on the boundary side of the formation, and the Eagles just went after him with A.J. Brown and ate up Emmanuel Forbes. Forbes has since been benched. So now their nickel has Danny Johnson in the slot with St. Juste and Kendall Fuller on the outside. So this is a different defense in many ways than the Eagles saw week 4. Maybe not a better defense, but a different defense.
Absolutely. And I think this is a good time to look at our last clip we have here, Greg, before we tie a bow on this thing. And, we got one more clip of tape right here. And, speaking of that defense, you're going to see some of the same faces, but you're going to see some new faces as well. And we're going to go back and just take a peek at, a couple of plays here that happened last time they played in week 4.
This is week 4.
Yeah. And here, you see this D-line can get after you a little bit.
They can get after you. There's no question. And that needs to be their foundation.
Yeah. And you see here, coverage-wise, it looks like they're trying to disguise a little bit. And then they kind of, looks like could be man, cover 1.
Yeah, it's happening quick, so I couldn't, quite get. I'm trying to see. Let's see.
But they're just sending forward.
Could be.
It looks like it's a matchup, man-to-man.
It could be his own match, too.
Yeah, it could be his own match. But like we said, I mean, this D-line, they haven't shown it a ton this year, but they have the ability to get after the quarterback, as we can see here. A big sack.
Chase Young beating Mailata.
Yeah, Chase Young beating Mailata. And then they get you in some tough down and distance situations where they pop a cover 2, and obviously, there's an opportunity there for Jalen Hurts to complete that.
No, their D-line has to have a big game. Has to have a big game.
Yeah. So overall, I think that, we think the Eagles are the better team. The Eagles should be able to handle them. It's a different team than they faced. And I know, trust me, playing these NFC East matchups, I've played in them myself. They're funny. Sometimes you'll watch this guy on tape and be like, oh, this guy's, this guy I should be able to move this guy. I should be able to dominate this guy. I'm better than he is. Whatever. And he shows up, and for some reason, this guy, I thought he looked worse on tape than he is in person, Greg.
Right.
He's actually pretty good in person.
I got a question for you as a former player. They just played in a Sunday night game that was super hyped. Many thought it was the best matchup of the season up to this point in the season. Obviously, huge TV audience. The whole deal. It was in Philly. You know the whole deal. So now they win that game, and they win it looking really good. As a player now, coming off a game like that, how do the coaches handle this week? How do you as a player handle this week? Because, hey, I haven't been in that situation, obviously. So, is there a chance, as much as players might say, no, is there a chance for a little bit of just mentally you're not quite as focused as you need to be?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're a younger team like the Chicago Bears or someone like that, I think there's a big chance for a letdown. Big Sunday night game, so you're losing a little bit of time there. You go back, you got to come back in the morning, watch a tape, get your workout in. You don't get much time to rest. But the fact that the Eagles have the team they have right now, you got these veteran guys, obviously, Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, this core of guys that have been through so much. And Jalen Hurts is one of the most focused individuals I've ever met. talking to Kelsey and Lane and all these guys during training camp, being on the field and just knowing the personality he has, that will not be an issue. And Nick Sirianni makes sure that too. Some players, yeah, they overlook a team. Oh man, we got these guys. They might take the foot off the gas pedal. But this team, I'm confident in saying they are not going to do that, because that is just not their personality, the type of players they are. And you got so many veterans on there. They know how to come in and play their best week after week.
And one thing we haven't mentioned, which I think really helps in that regard, was the trade for Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard is a really, really good football player. He's a veteran.
I wanted your take on that, Greg.
Kevin Byard has been one of the best safeties in the league. Now, I don't think he's quite the same as he was 3-4 years ago, and I thought you could make an argument for 2-3 years he was the best all-around safety in the league, but he's still a really, really good player. He's coming from a team that he probably felt was going south a little bit, right or wrong, now to a team where, he feels, hey, I've just come to a team that's going to win a championship. Hey, they were in the Super Bowl a year ago. He's rejuvenated. He's going to come in all fired up, and guys are going to see that, and they're going to feed off him as well, because I don't know Kevin Byard personally, but I do a lot of work in Nashville, so I know all about him and his personality and the kind of guy he is, and he's that kind of guy, Clay. So he's one of those guys that comes in with the right attitude, the right approach, and he's going to raise other people this week.
Love to hear that he's that type of player. And do you think his skill set fits in with the Sean Desai defense?
Without question. He's a multi-dimensional player, can play on the back end, can match tight ends man-to-man, can blitz, can play the run. He's a complete multi-dimensional safety.
Oh, I love it. Love to hear it. And I can speak to, before we get out of here, I could speak to, a veteran player going to a team midseason. Some people say it's tough to do. It is tough, but if you're a veteran, if you're a guy that has been around for years, to me, I'll tell this story real fast. I'm with the Patriots. It's week 6, Deflategate year. Tom Brady comes back. We have a couple injuries, and this is before you could put the guys in the long-term, the short-term IR. So you're going into battle. You got to have those guys on the roster. You can't put them on. So we have some guys hurt. You got to keep them on the roster unless you put them on IR for the season.
Right.
So then they have to cut guys. You have to clear up space, because you got to clear up space to bring a guy into fill position. I get released from the Patriots. They end up winning the Super Bowl that year, coming back from the Atlanta Falcons down 28. I didn't get a ring, but neither here nor there.
I was at that game. I've been at the Super Bowls. Yeah.
Yeah. I got cut on it was a Monday. I get signed on a Tuesday. I show up in Detroit on a Wednesday. I am playing 40 plays on offense on the next following Sunday. Picked up the offense, was out there being successful. If you're a veteran and you know what you're doing, this stuff can happen fast. He will be a guy that he's seen it before. He's a big-time player, a guy that knows how to play. He can get on the field and he can make an impact immediately.
Right.
He will probably get a number of plays. He'll have some packages this week, and moving forward, you're going to see a lot of them, especially next week. The following week, we're not looking forward to the Cowboys, but we'll say the following week against the Cowboys, when you have CeeDee Lamb and Brandon
against
Cook.
the Cowboys, he'll play almost every snap. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So he will make a difference. Some people say, no, he's in midseason. Doesn't matter. This guy knows how to pick up a defense, and he will make a difference. And I hope today me and Greg made a difference in how you guys view the Philadelphia Eagles game against the Dolphins and how you're looking forward to next week against the Commanders. And from myself, former Eagles tight end Clay Harbor, and the man, the myth, the legend, Greg Cosell, thank you for listening. Fly, Eagles, fly.